Hello, everybody, and it's really lovely to have you here. Some familiar faces and some unfamiliar faces, which is great. So before I share our Europeana Essentials resource with everybody, I just want to talk a little bit about what it's there for and sort of the problem we're trying to solve, which you kind of have hinted at really with those comments in the chat. So when we talk about Europeana, or when we try to present something, we need to explain things. We need to present or talk about Europeana. We might need to explain what it is, who's involved, maybe, what the various different elements are and how they all fit together. And as Peter's commented, that can be fairly complex because Europeana is multifaceted, let's say. And when we present as well, we also might need to link that big picture to ourselves as individuals. So how does the work we do as individuals, or maybe as part of a particular project or an area of work, how does that link to the bigger picture? And I hope that when you see the Europeana Essential slide decks and the sections of it, you'll be able to make those connections and associations more easily. So this resource is to help you with the content of those presentations. So another thing we have to think about when we're presenting is who we're talking to. So are we talking to, like we had a week or so ago, a conference of sort of long-standing, well-informed Europeana partners? Perhaps we may be talking to a group of teachers who've never used Europeana, or maybe you're talking to your granny over dinner and trying to explain to her, what your work is and what you're interested in. So we have to think what changes when you talk to those different audiences and what stays the same. And I think what stays the same are those core facts, and that's what the Europeana Essentials is going to help you with. That's what you can find in this resource. So you're going to then need to make some decisions about how you present them, depending on your audience and your situation. So what having this resource of core facts does is it helps us all to tell the same story, and that makes it easier for our audience, whichever part of the audience they are, to understand what it is we're all doing. Sort of as simple as that, really. So it's important for us all to be telling the same story, and that means we can all fit into the same sort of overall goal. We avoid confusion. We introduce clarity, hopefully, and that means together we've sort of got a smoother path for the whole Europeana mission. Ultimately, it means we can advance that Europeana mission together a bit better. So if you could just go to the next slide, Georgia. All of our presentations, you might say, focus on a different piece of the jigsaw, but the picture you make when you put it all together needs to make sense. And so to me, the Europeana Essentials is a bit like the picture on the outside of the jigsaw box. It shows you what it is we're fitting into. So there's two benefits then to Europeana Essentials. One, it has a benefit to you as an individual. It gives you all the core facts really quickly and easily. And then when we're all telling that same story together, that has a much wider benefit to the Europeana initiative and to what we're all trying to do together as a whole. So if we go to the next slide, what is the Europeana Essentials? It's a toolkit to help you to present about the work that Europeana does. So it's really useful because it's ready-made. You can go straight to it. You don't have to start from scratch. It's up to date. It's updated every 6 months by our subject experts at the Europeana Foundation. And it's comprehensive, so it covers all the areas that we work within, but it's brief. And the reason it's brief is so that it can be adapted to your situation and your audience. As we mentioned before, the core facts will stay the same, but you will have to adapt how you present something depending on your audience and your particular situation. So what's in it? I bet you're dying to know. Well, we have 7 essential slide decks, each focusing on a different area of work. But what's inside of them is sort of roughly the same in each one. So there's always a navigation and guidance section to begin with. And this section tells you where you are in the slide decks, and I'll show you the map in a second. It tells you there are links to all the other slide decks, and it gives you some guidance on how to use the slide deck, so how to make a copy of the presentation, which we'll also show you a little bit later. And there's a really useful little slide in there with just a couple of presenting tips, one of which is to remember to show how you're connected to Europeana, which I think is something people sometimes skip over because they're really interested in the content, but make sure you present at the beginning how you're connected. So are you a Europeana Foundation employee? Are you a project partner? Are you a member of the Network Association or the Aggregators Forum? And if you look in the presenter notes, you'll find some little phrases that you can use to help you establish that at the beginning of your presentation. And there are also then statistics about all sorts of things. We've got some really nice images, which have all got the credits that you need to share them. We sometimes have quotes from users or project members or people from our network and initiative. And of course, there are descriptions of all sorts of things. So there's lots of information in there, but as I say, it's all deliberately brief so that you can bring it into your own context. So if we move on to the slide map, you'll see one of these at the beginning of each of the slide decks, and you can see it's got 7 circles. Each of those circles represents one of the slide decks, and the names of the slide decks in each circle is a link, so you can use that to click on them to go to any of the other decks. And so every single slide deck has this map in it, so you should always be able to find out where you are and where to go for other information. And they also have a contents slide for each deck to show what's specifically in that slide deck. Okay. When you start to have a look, this will all hopefully become very clear and easy to move around and navigate. So I'll just talk you through what each of those circles represents. So if we go to the next slide. So that, like I say, there are 7 slide decks, and each of them tells a different part of the story. So the first 2 slide decks are those circles at the top previously. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the circle that's pink is the one that you're in. That's really useful to remember. So our first slide deck is called Strategy and Priorities. So that's your big context, your vision, mission, Europeana's values. It has information about this thing called digital transformation that we talk a lot about. It has this information about this thing called the data space that we're starting to talk a lot about. And it has slides about the current topics that we advocate around. The second one, Europeana ecosystem, is the who's involved: the Europeana Foundation, the Network Association, the Aggregators Forum, and the projects and partnerships. So those 2 first decks give you the really big context, the what and the who. And then if you move to the next slide, we've got the next 4 decks, which really tell you the story of the cultural heritage data. So how it makes its way into Europeana, what we do with it, and then how it's used by others. And all of this information that I'm giving you now is on the Europeana Pro page. So you don't have to remember this because it's a lot. So you can go to that Pro page and we'll tell you where that is in a minute. And you can see through all these and you can work out which deck you want for your presentation. So we start off with how we get high quality data in. So that's information about the aggregation infrastructure and tools and all the frameworks that lie behind getting the cultural heritage data into Europeana. Number 4 is what I kind of call the techie stuff. So it's information about Europeana tech. It's about enrichment, what we do with the data to really build the quality and to enhance it. IIIF, which is to do with images, image quality, linked open data, sort of experiments and things in artificial intelligence, and things to do with multilinguality, which is a really big topic. Okay. So then we move to number 5, which is now we've got the data into Europeana, into the data set, we need to share it. So this is about the Europeana website, europeana.eu. It's about how we develop that website and the user experience on there. It's about accessibility. It has lots of information about how we create engagement via editorial, exhibitions, social media, campaigns, festivals and competitions. That's things like the Digital Storytelling Festival and GIF It Up, which is on at the moment. And then the 6th one here is, so we've got all the data into Europeana and now we want to get it out again to people to use it. So how do we do that? So we've got APIs that people can use to link to other apps, services. We have case studies of how people have reused data in creative ways. And we have specific information about how the cultural heritage data can be used in education and in research. And then the final one is, next slide, please. Yep, is professional support, or otherwise known as capacity building. So this is about the support and resources available for cultural heritage professionals who want to develop their skills or knowledge. So it's about what resources are available on Europeana Pro, and there are sections on developing capacity in impact, in copyright, in research, in education, and of course our events and how they help support people to develop skills, networks, etc. So in a nutshell, that's what's in the Europeana Essentials. So I hope that that hasn't put you off. That's not too much information. It is nicely set out. And once you have a look at the slide deck map and familiarize yourself with what's where, I hope that it will be really useful. And this is, of course, a really useful thing for us to do as well, to share this with you in this way and to find out if indeed you can navigate it nicely. If there's any problems, please do let us know. If there's something you spot that you think is incorrect, or if there's something that you think is really missing that should be essential and is not in there, please get in touch, because as I say, we do update this on a regular basis. So back to Georgia to tell you where it is.
Yes, indeed. So as Beth says, this is really a resource that helps you when presenting Europeana, which is what we're hoping to help you with today. And with that in mind, it is on Europeana Pro. So the Essentials available on Europeana Pro, which is our website for professionals who work in and around the cultural heritage sector. As Beth has outlined, on that page, you will see embedded the first slide deck that Beth talked through about strategy, that you can use to kind of get a sense of the Europeana initiative. And Beth has kindly just put the link in the chat. Thank you, Beth. And then underneath, you will see links to all of the other slide decks that Beth has outlined with a brief description to help you figure out kind of where the information that you're looking for is. So for your Europeana Essentials, go to this webpage on Pro. Now, once you get there, how do you use the slides? So you'll see that if you click on the different links, you get taken to Google Slides. Now, if you're familiar with Google Slides, these are set to view only. So you can't make any changes because we are managing the information there. But we very much want you to use the slides, to make copies, to use them for the presentation that you need. So what you can see on the screen is how you, I hope, is how you can make your own copy. So should be familiar if you've worked with Google, but you can go to File, make a copy, and then copy the entire presentation. You can then edit it, keep in the slides you need, take out the information you don't, etc. If you don't work with Google Slides, or you prefer not to, or you're not familiar, or you're doing a presentation that doesn't require them, you can also download these as a PowerPoint or as a PDF. And although it's not shown on the screen, similarly, if you go to File and Download, which you can see, you can then download them as the PowerPoint or as the PDF. And finally, if you don't want to use the slides at all, but you still have to do a presentation about Europeana that touches on Europeana, that introduces Europeana, we hope that the information that's in them is still really useful. So you can still go through them and navigate them, pull that information that you need out and use them for a written article, for a speech, or even just for your own knowledge as well.
Well, how's it going? I do get it wrong, absolutely. And public speaking absolutely gives me the shivers. I find it really daunting. So the Europeana slide deck and all the resources and kind of support online are a massive, help to me to kind of, I suppose, build your confidence in terms of, communicating what you do and what you work on and how you want to kind of make an impact and make a difference. So my first experience with Europeana, or what was the other one, Europeana.com, was given a presentation to a large audience about that's Vienna in 2018. So I'm going right back, but this was one of the first kind of speaking engagements I ever did, and I was absolutely petrified going up on that stage. And this was a story, a simple kind of story, a personal story about a World War I memorial plaque dedicated to HMS Lorentic fireman named Thomas McGarry via the Europeana 1914 to 1918 collecting kind of project. And so that's the World War I memorial plaque. And I'm just going to talk for about maybe 7 minutes, so I'll just kind of rattle through this, but just kind of talk about how having kind of a little script prepared so that I could kind of keep images to a minimum and kind of just make an impact and be kind of as kind of clear and kind of just making a personal connection with the presentation. So next slide, please, there, Tamara. This is the Ss Lorentic, and it was built by Harland and Wolff in 1908 in Belfast to sail between Liverpool and Quebec in Canada. And after the outbreak of the First World War, the Lorentic was used as a troop transport ship for the Canadian Expeditionary Force. But tragically, on the 25th of January 1917, while sailing from Liverpool to Halifax, the Lorentic struck 2 mines off the Irish coast. One of the mines destroyed the engine room and made it impossible to issue a distress call. And because the ship was kind of listing by about 20 degrees, it was extremely difficult to lower the lifeboats for the people on board. And there was 354 people and troops who were lost in the sinking. And due to the freezing conditions, many were found frozen in their lifeboats, and in some cases, tragically, still gripping their oars. And overall, the Lorentic was carrying 479 passengers and also had a secret cargo of 43 tons of gold, which was to pay the US and Canada during the First World War for munitions. And I think this is approximately worth about 2.5 billion in today's money. And there was successive dives down to the seabed off the coast of Donegal to retrieve them, and they still say there's about 20 or 30 gold bars still there that they couldn't recover. But next slide there, please, Tamara. So this is the memorial plaque, and tragically Thomas McGarry was a fireman on board the Lorentic, and he lost his life in the sinking, and his body was never recovered. 50 years after the sinking, in the 1960s, my grandfather dug up this very memorial plaque near the Shannon River in Limerick City. And as the name Thomas McGarry was unknown in the area, the plaque kind of remained a mystery and impossible to trace or return. So recognizing this kind of conundrum, in 2013, I shared the story about this memorial plaque and Thomas McGarry on Europeana 1914 to 1918, hoping others would kind of help solve the mystery of who he was. And 4 years later, in 2017, close to the centenary of the sinking of the Lorentic, one of Thomas McGarry's great-grandchildren in Australia, all the way across the world, spotted the Europeana story and alerted her cousins who were in the UK and in Ireland. And a week before the centenary, and it was all so just serendipitous, we were able to return the memorial plaque to McGarry's granddaughter, Yvonne O'Connor, who's based in Limerick. And I think if you just click there, it'll reveal itself. So there we are. Yvonne explained that Tommy McGarry was originally from Liverpool and had married Delia Moran in Limerick in 1904. And Tommy had enlisted in the Mercantile Marine Reserve and sadly left Delia widowed with 5 children after the sinking. And because Thomas McGarry's body was never recovered after the sinking, the return of the memorial plaque was extremely poignant for the McGarry grandchildren. And this object really was the only tangible connection to him and his memory. And Yvonne kind of explained to me, filling in the gaps of the story, why the plaque was uncovered in Limerick. And it's possible that as Delia and her children were still living there in the city in the early 1920s, without a body, the plaque might have been buried in a way to kind of mourn for her husband without a body. So really, this was such a poignant story for me, kind of recognizing how it kind of brought people all over the world using Europeana. And I suppose the return of this subject made me understand how Europeana, I still have Europeana in my head, but Europeana is a home for our collective memory and our shared heritage, especially, I suppose, allowing us to kind of understand the complexities of our past, to make sense of the present. And having a platform like this to contextualize the object and kind of give new meaning and understanding while also connecting people together, it made such impact, and I think this is just a small little story showing the power of kind of connecting digital cultural heritage. So that's a little story that I did in Vienna, and that was one of the slides just showing the return of the plaque, and we had it picked up in the Limerick Leader, and my mum is in the coat there in the middle, and she was so proud to be able to finally kind of solve the mystery and return it to the family of McGarry. So that's an example just of a small presentation that I did that at the time I was incredibly nervous about, and I remember I had butterflies in my chest, and you know, when any individual isn't comfortable with public speaking, it's all about practice and it's all about preparation, but having kind of resources like the essential slide deck, it makes a huge difference, because you don't have to spend a huge amount of time then kind of reinventing or inventing something, that you can kind of rely on something that's a tried and tested resource to allow you to be kind of coherent and communicate, you know, what you're working on, and you know, connecting digital cultural heritage.
Thank you for joining. We've got a series of these communications workshops coming up. The next one is on the 29th of November, and it's going to be about how to start writing for Europeana, your storytelling toolkit. So it'll be about editorial formats for the Europeana EU website, and sort of how you can get involved. We haven't got a registration link for that one yet, so do look out for it on our events page and social media and so on. And of course, if you're not a member of the Europeana Network Association, do join. You can find that link on the Europeana Pro as well. There's lots of events and things you can join, and lots of communities. You can get newsletters you can sign up for. So if you want to keep informed, go to there. And that's, I think, it. So thank you so much to Georgia and to Killian and to Tamara and to Sebastian for his video, and for everyone for joining. And do keep in touch about the decks and what's useful and what's not. And we look forward to seeing you on another topic another time.